So that's the water supply part. No leaks, thank God. Tons of PTFE tape and fiddling. Well, here's that last joint. Everything else has been cemented up. It seems to work just fine, and this will just pop right in there. No problem. So now it's time to do the final glue, and then we can move on to the other side, which is for the dishwasher P-trap. That should be really easy. But this was a little tricky stuff, going from one diameter to another, and a little angle. But it worked out, so far so good. Dry fit everything, and then just slowly build back to the critical glue, which is this one. Onwards and upwards. And that should do it. The marks are fairly lined up. Looks okay. Now the next run is to the P-trap for the dishwasher, which should go over there in the corner somewhere. So we'll see about fitting that now. So far, so good. Not bad. Should drain just fine. And there we are. You can see the top is now connected to the sink. Then we have the water filter hookup, and then the dishwasher hookup with a shutoff valve and a what do you call them? Easy Connect hose nipple, and then the shutoff. Now, in a house this age, this is a 45-year-old house, the shutoff doesn't work all that well. It still leaks a little bit, so it's highly recommended that you put a shutoff after it, because it trickles water. This silver fitting is no longer closing all the way. What happens is that these are typically a gate valve, and the seat gets compressed because people open them all the way. And I recommend that you don't do that. I recommend that if you open a gate valve, you open it to like 95%, so as to preserve the seat. Otherwise, the seat gets compressed and never quite recovers. Anyways, that's a ball valve there. So that's not going to have any kind of seat problems, because ball valves just rotate in a fitting. And then we have the easy or quick connect for the hose there, which may or may not stay. I put a 3/4 inch hose fitting on the end there, that little brass thing right before the green. So I'll be able to put a regular hose, high pressure hose on there, which I think is probably a wiser move than the sort of rinky-dink hose that I got to just get this thing going over the next couple weeks. And then once the for real hose shows up, I will probably remove that nipple and just hook up a more seriously rated hose. Let's hope it all holds. But for now, it's looking good. So I've got 1, 2, 3 off takes from this little tiny 3/8 input. Okay. And then we have the plumbing. Just to recap, the plumbing started here with this T-joint coming out of the wall. Now on the other side of that wall, there is no sign of a pipe. That means that whatever I did in here was pretty high stakes gambling, because there's nowhere to go and there's no meat left on this pipe. So as I was trying to clean out the T-connector, it shattered because the plastic is decades old. So I ended up taking a smaller 32 millimeter butt connector and gluing it in to a hole that I custom made in the 40 millimeter piping. And then I put some silicone around there just as a safety measure. That was fun. Of course, then now I'm 32 millimeters going off of there, so I ended up having to adjust for the 40 millimeter pipe that comes off of the basket, which is the trap. That all worked out. After a little bit of fiddling, you can see my reference marks on the plastic there. It was pretty close when it comes to registering. And then what I did was put in a T-connector there so that I have my dishwasher drain over there. And the reason why I put it over there is I just didn't want it to get too crowded under here. We put garbage cans and pots and stuff under here, and I didn't want to put a third trap. There's already 2 crowding up this space. And if I had put a third here where this lamp is, there'd be no place for the garbage can to go. So I stuck it over there, a little bit of a run. It's got a nice angle, so it should drain properly. 32 inches above the floor, so it meets the high loop requirement and makes for a shorter drain run, which is good. The water supply part is no big deal. It's now just a hose. But that drain part, I want that drain to be short because it's tough to do long drains. I'd rather drain into a pipe than have this flexible stuff running all over the place. So that's kind of it. I'm pretty pleased. The install is now, in terms of hardware, it's pretty much done. The next thing to do is get onto that cabinet there and make a couple of holes. Now I think I'm going to probably do them high, make this cutlery drawer short, because it's way longer than a cutlery tray, and run it behind there, because if I run it along the bottom, things go along the bottom. So I'd rather run the hoses high, and that'll give me a nice high loop. So they'll run just under that counter height, turn the corner, and drop into that drain pipe there. The drain, that is. As for the supply is going to come off of here, and it's going to go probably right behind that drain pipe. There's a little bit of clearance there, and then just skirt the corner, come through this cabinet, and then drop down, because the dishwasher's got its service entry is at the bottom. So that's pretty much it. Next thing is just making a couple of hoses, making a couple of holes, and seeing how everything hooks up. So we're looking pretty good for a connection today, or worst case around noon tomorrow. Depends on what Mrs. Maker has in planned for me this evening. So that's the install. Was a bit of an adventure. There were a couple of moments there, like when I shattered the T-connector. That was a pucker moment. And getting all these things watertight was very tricky stuff indeed. It just looks like a craziness up there. It's like I'm running an oil refinery. But yeah, that's what happens when you have main water plus water filter plus dishwasher running off the same entry. And the hot, of course, is dead simple. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this. I sure did. It's such a great sense of accomplishment when you're getting towards the end strokes on a project, and the next bit of footage you're going to see is probably the final install with the hoses strung through but not yet connected. And then what I'll do is I'll have Mrs. Maker help me with the hoses to slide them in, connect everything up, and then run this thing and see how it works. Let's have a look soon. Next step is just holes and hookups.
I hope you liked this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, giving me a like, and leaving me a comment. I really enjoy making these videos, and I want to know from you how I can make them better. The whole point of these videos is to demonstrate that if I can do something, you can do it too. Well, that's it for now. So long, and remember, keep making.